What is going on, you guys? My name is Rayge, and we are back today to unpack and analyze the two meta teams right now that exist for the bio raids and the endgame content for Marvel Strike Force. But more importantly, with HIVE-MIND being the newer and fresh team, obviously everyone's wanting to get hands on these new characters, building them up. This decision may seem like a no-brainer, but upon my further review and in light of the news that have come today for all the Marvel Strike players, this decision might be a little harder than we may think, and that's why we're here to analyze all the different considerations, guys. So having said that, let's get right to it. First and foremost, I want to talk about each of these two bio raid teams specifically because there's actually many different layers that we need to unpack here in terms of what's going to be best for your overall account. Let's start off with HIVE-MIND here. First and foremost, they're the new raid team using the 5-piece, obviously with Red Goblin not having released yet, but we got official confirmation. The kit is amazing. It's going to synergize extremely well with the other 4 members. And more importantly, you don't actually need to utilize Super Scroll to go through the bio raids, which is huge for folks that have not actually unlocked Super Scroll through the completion of Dark Dimension 6. Having said that, it doesn't seem like they're a viable war team just yet. It's going to be interesting to see the gameplay and more additional information on how they fare outside of raids. But right now, they do appear to be a one-and-done kind of team unless there's specific seasonality changes. Having said that, seasonality is kicking in actually for the HIVE-MIND team and symbiote characters in Season 6 for Cosmic Crucible, where they're going to be able to synergize more with the Sinister 6, Superior 6 characters. So some additional value is going to be added for this team if you're already building them up, because they're going to finally have some value outside of just the raids. And even in my honest opinion, I think a couple of the characters do have some viability in Dark Dimension 6, but both Carnage, Venom, they're very, very costly. I wouldn't recommend them, but characters like Void Knight, Gwenom, Grant Goblin, they do potentially bring in some value if you want to expand beyond just the raid usage. One thing to consider though is that 3 out of the 5 characters do share alien spores, which isn't a big deal, you would think, right? 3 out of the 5, not too bad, but alien spores is also required for the best character in the game right now, being Super Scroll. So it's not a decision that you can take lightly, especially with how difficult it is to farm these Gear Tier 18 uniques. And lastly, guys, they are a new and fresh team. We know with this game, obviously the newer and fresh teams are the ones that you want to be building because they stay relevant longer. But having said that, this is a raid team, and with raids specifically, they do have the least amount of value out of all the game modes. And what I mean by that is new raids are getting added, teams get shuffled out, and they do transition. If you recall, even Rebirth, I believe they came out at the start of 2023. They didn't even last a full year, and here we are with the HIVE-MIND team. And even before Rebirth, it was Web Warriors, and then preceding that is Symbiote. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Now let's talk about Rebirth. They're obviously the old raid team. However, they can actually still get the Incursion 2 content done and completed right now with the addition of Super Scroll, which puts their team over. They are a war defense juggernaut right now. They are one of the best defensive teams right now in war because of the seasonality update to them. So if this persists and it gets hold true obviously in the future here, there's obviously value that can be had for a team, even for a raid specific team. They also had usages in Cosmic Crucible in the previous season where they were very strong to get, and difficult to get through. Again, because of their synergy and the amount of support they have. Cosmic Crucible is going to be interesting going forward for Rebirth because we know that potentially there's an out-of-time rework coming to both Captain Carter and Captain America. How much that changes remains to be seen, and that's kind of the X factor that we're not considering here with HIVE-MIND being the fresh team, right? They're also required right now for the Goblin Trials. I don't suspect that the trials will get reworked the same way that Scourges do, just because of how fresh Nova, Black Cat, Green Goblin have been released. And you do need Rebirth actually built up if you want to go beyond difficulty 8 and above. So if you care about giving and unlocking a 7 yellow and Green Goblin, then you may actually not have a choice in this manner to build up Rebirth because you need them to actually get through the nodes. Again, assuming that Scopely and Marvel Strike Force does not change this criteria in the year, but we're just going to assume the span right now of 2024 and not further. There's no issues with the uniques because the majority of the characters all actually have a different one, so you're not going to have an issue bringing them up. And then lastly, folks might lean on this choice because of the sunk cost investment where people already have built up Rebirth from previous raids, obviously, and they brought them up for, again, Green Goblin Trials. So there's a lot of value to be had already Rebirth, which is kind of nice, and that's why there's a big appeal here to obviously keep building this team or bringing them and maximizing them while also being mindful of the out-of-time rework that's coming here with the additions of new characters. So guys, in my honest opinion, I think you do need to take a look at, what is going to be your goal here. Are you trying to maximize the resources that you have in terms of gold? Are you trying to just build the newest team so that way you stay relevant in the meta? It really depends, and that's why we're having this discussion, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, I think the big thing is we have to wait and see what the full teams are going to look like, because by doing so, then you can assess fully what the out of time team is going to look like versus HIVE-MIND. And as well, Captain Carter and Captain America, both having immense value, not just in raids. I brought them into Dark Dimension. They were huge. So there's a lot of different factors to consider here, as opposed to just bringing up the newest team right now to do the raid. So I wanted to do a little checklist here of all the different things that they're strong in, so that way you guys can help decide what is going to be best. But again, both teams can complete the Incursion 2 raids for now. Mind you, Rebirth absolutely needs Super Scroll, whereas with the HIVE-MIND team, it's going to be absent of that. But keep in mind, if you build up HIVE-MIND, again, it's going to have that unique constraint with Super Scroll. And, when it comes to the best character right now in the game, there's no question that you have to build him up above a raid team. Farmability wise right now, Rebirth takes the win for this, because obviously they're available and can be farmed. We haven't seen this with HIVE-MIND yet, but I'm sure if they're holding true to their word and keeping these revisions accurate, they're going to be adding them in the game in some way, shape, or form in the coming months. So that's not an issue for right now. Legendary requirement, Rebirth so far is a required team for the Green Goblin trials, as I touched on earlier. We may see HIVE-MIND being a requirement in the future. This will change that assessment, but for the time being, Rebirth will take the win in this category. If you're a brand new player and mid-game transitioning to end-game, HIVE-MIND's a no-brainer. By the time you bring up this team, HIVE-MIND's likely going to be farmable, and they are going to be crushing all the end-game bio content that you guys need. So just something to be mindful of right now. If you're an end-game player, I think that's going to be the biggest fork in the road, is the built-up rosters. End-game players have to decide if they want to build this team up or just already use the value that's been invested in the Rebirth team. We have potentially new Incursion raids coming. So obviously HIVE-MIND being the fresher, newer team is going to combat that better. But again, I am very interested in seeing how well Rebirth can fare going forward with Super Scroll, because they're still a very powerful team with the amount of support and synergy that they have. Actually, both Captain America and Carter being able to obviously cleanse, provide energy, it makes Super Scroll even better, which is kind of the value that's to be had there. PvP content right now, I would say, is a tie, because it just honestly depends. The seasons can change anything, and we don't know what the true impact of the out of time is going to be. But something else to consider, if you guys care about building up your arena team, well, I think it's going to come down to Cosmic Ghost Rider versus Void Knight. That's the value that we've seen right now that's viable. So definitely going to be interesting for sure to consider that. We have obviously the unique situation here going on with Rebirth. So again, Super Scroll being the relevant character right now, that's something we have to be considering. But Rebirth obviously gaining that advantage there because they don't have conflicting gear. We also have the stats here, obviously HIVE-MIND taking the efforts out of there. But again, we're not factoring in the out of time reworks just yet, so we have to revisit this. But for the time being, it does seem like it's close to a net tie right now, which means if you're an end game player like myself, you may be better off not making a decision just yet, especially if you've already invested in a team like Rebirth and have built up that value. So again, guys, your game goal is going to be very, very important. Do you want easier raids right now that you can sim, or do you want to maximize your value? For me, it is about maximizing, because if I know right now that by my bio team, it can still get the job done and they're able to capitalize, I may not need to build up the HIVE-MIND team just yet, but I can obviously be wary of them and slowly build them up and maximize my golden opportunity milestones for the time being. So again, consider what your current golden resources are. And as I reiterated before, wait and see how the teams are going to fare. But I don't believe this decision is going to be as black and white as everyone thinks, just because with them being a newer team. Now that we've confirmed that Out of Time is a new team that's coming, reworks coming to Captain Carter and Captain America, it definitely is an X factor to consider. And what's also nice is that, again, they don't share any unique constraints with Super Scroll, the best character right now in the game that could have immediate impact to your account as opposed to an additional raid team. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. My game plan will be to wait and see and obviously capitalize on what I can in the time being, but I'll obviously give you guys a quick update as well once we get further confirmation on how these new teams will fare. But for the time being, guys, I would stress just waiting and seeing how these will do before you build up these characters, before we realize we may or may not need them. That's always my game plan, especially if you're trying to maximize your resources. As always, do appreciate your time. Let me know what you think in the comments below, guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.